everybody, it's John. I'm back with a Living with Mental Health podcast. Sorry I've been away for a long time, but due to the guest I've got on today in the Restoration Trust, I've managed to upgrade my equipment. As you can see me clearer, better now, as before my podcasts were only audio available. Today we're going to be uploading it to YouTube and getting the video out onto YouTube so you can see me a bit better. It is going to be playing around with it a little bit more in the next coming weeks, just so I can get the right angles and the right lighting on me. But bear with me, stick at it. So I just want to say thank you to David Robertson, who is from Jader Jader. He kindly donated me some money to get towards my PC, a ring light and a webcam. And also I just want to say a big thank you to Laura from the Restoration Trust, who also donated some money and gave me the chance to be able to upgrade my equipment to go and put onto YouTube. I absolutely detest having my video done and my picture taken. That's really a tough mental image for me to do this. But I'm hoping that once we get through the series, and hope that today that someone can take something from one of my messages or one of my guest messages, and that can help them through the show. So with further ado, this is episode 1. We're going to crack on. I'm going to ask David to introduce himself and we're going to go from there. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. Let me tell you, I'm drinking water out of an Eagle IPA Great British Beer Festival cup. Now, I've been to the Great British Beer Festival a few times. I think I don't need to say much more than that, really. And I live in South Norfolk, and I live in a small village. Prior to living here, I've lived in big cities, so village life is new, only 20 years old for me. Prior to that, I'm 56 now, so 30 years of my life was spent in cities. And in a village, I find that you're not so anonymous. When you're in a city or a big town, you're a more of an anonymous person, and that gives you a certain amount of freedom to move around the city, which is different from a village. You walk out of the house and you see someone, you have a conversation immediately, and it's nice, but also the anonymity of living in a village is slightly different. So I'm very conscious of myself in the village, and also I'm conscious of let's say my behavior. So my behavior is normal and doesn't attract attention, because any kind of abnormal or less more interesting activity is noticed, if that makes sense. So I fit in quite well in the village, in an possibly a slightly eccentric way. I mean, I think that English people can be quite eccentric, which is a nice word for well, to an English person, eccentricity is normal. For someone observing from maybe another country, they may see our eccentricity and wonder what it is. So I bring that back to like Monty Python a little bit. So Monty Python would be illustrating the more eccentric nature of the English person. And in some ways it's comedic. Some people look at it and think it's not very funny, but Monty Python to me it's a subtlety. It's got a subtlety in it, which makes it more interesting and also quite funny. So I work as a computer programmer, and my sweatshirt does actually say programmers are magical. So I'm assuming we are. I mean, in computer programming, you make a lot of assumptions, and one of them is that programmers are magical. So I kind of I think working within a discipline like computer programming, I'm going to call it a discipline, and I'll give you an insight into that, because I work with various tools to make the programs that I write, and one of the tools is by a company called Progress. Rather, a company is called Progress, and the tool is within the Telerik suite of controls. 20 coders out there, they should know what Telerik by Progress is. And one of their tools is called Kendo UI. Kendo is a martial art, and thus implies that you need to be disciplined to use it. Thinking you do need to be disciplined to code, because you spend 10 hours. I would spend 10 hours in front of the computer for of a day. In a sunny day like today, I'm inside and I'm working on the computer, but that is my choice, because I really like computer coding. And to me, what happens is I have a lot of ideas. Now, everything is awesome, but I need to channel my focus into a productive fashion of something. So what I do is I get in the zone with my code, and I write the code, and I look at my watch, and it's 4 hours later. I think, well, where have I been writing this code? And it's good, because it means that I've channeled my ideas and my creativity into the code, and I've made the computer, I've made the computer do what I want it to do. So as I wrote recently on a LinkedIn post, the binary machine, which is what's sat in front of all of us now once we watch this video, the binary machine, right, is there for us to use and to command and to tell it what to do, because that is what a machine is for. We create them for many purposes, but mostly for us to use. And where people are concerned, we shouldn't use people. That's one of my majorly strong ethoses, is not to use another person. And if I find myself using a person, I will back away from them and give them a little bit of space to recognize the line that's drawn between two people, to say we don't use each other. Now, there is another concept, just a real quick concept in this introduction I'd like to introduce, and that is one of lending yourself to someone else. Because as a friend, you make friends with someone, you can say, well, you know, you can borrow me for a little while, I can help you with this, I can help you with that. And then next week they say, well, you helped me last week, I'll come and help you this week. And that's where friendship lets you lend yourself to someone. That isn't using, because friendship is a bond which it transcends the using sphere of anything. But in a work situation, you get paid to do your job. Now, if your pay isn't enough, then you start to use the individual that you're employing. And that what happens then is that person becomes ill. Maybe their battery gets reduced to the point where they have to go off sick or something. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is pay someone. If you want to use them more for what you want in your company, then you need to pay them more, so that they don't they can then spend that in the community and stay safe. Because that's how I understand the balance of working for someone and being paid works. It's like, when you go and work for someone, you take on the attributes of the company. And this might get too complicated, I hope it doesn't. You take on the attributes of the company, which is often very competitive. So you get seen as part of their team, and that means that they compete against other people within a locality, right? And then what happens is when you leave that office and become an individual again, because you're not at work, you need to keep your pay safe so you can spend it in the shops, and the shops say you're okay, you're spending your money in the community. But if you don't have enough to spend in the community to keep yourself safe, then you get sick again. So I can
really relate to that.
Thank you, John. Thank you. It's just I'm hoping that the people understand mental health is something that can creep in and get you if you can't keep yourself safe through mechanisms which you understand and know to be right. Now, a lot of that is learning. As you grow older, you become wiser, and therefore you become more resourceful. Now, I'm hoping we all reach that ripe old age where we can look back on our lives and say, yeah, we had some fun as well as anything else, because that helps us. That helps us a little bit with that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I think that as far as really myself is concerned, I run a business. I actually run 3 businesses, although 2 are very quiet. One is the more noisy one, is the software company, and we are open for business if people would like work doing for them. We provide technical solutions, and we can often accommodate Well, we we're flexible. We're flexible as far as the contractual arrangements are concerned. For instance, low budget is almost okay. Although if it takes us away from some of our other work, we can't really afford to do low budget stuff too much. But come to us and talk to us and see if we can find a way forward for your idea. And that way, if we can't help, then we might be able to pass you to someone in our community that can do the work for you. So don't be afraid of approaching me either, because, well, I mean, my website might say something like approach respectively, do business equitably, and leave equally, or something along those lines, because we all want a little bit of equality in the world. And I think that's probably one of the crucial aspects moving forward for the two sexes on the world as such. Yeah, the equality needs to be established, because otherwise there'll be one person left, and it'll either be male or female. The person will be rather male or female, and they'll one person left is no good to anybody.
No.
So you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but sometimes it feels like that. It's just sometimes it feels like that with some of the things that I see and hear, and people's behaviours and things. Maybe my own as well, but we're all human as such, and we're all learning as well. That's another very important aspect of what I'm trying to say. That is
an important bit. And I've been taught, whenever I do a talk or recently, or I try and write a blog, or I speak to someone, or doing some training, my point is we are all unique and individual. We're not the same. So no person with the same condition or the same illness or the same business is going to run exactly the same, because people are all unique and different. And that is a big thing for me, trying to get that point across. Does that make sense?
You. That makes a lot of sense, John. But I'd add something to that. And I'd suggest that in any, now I'm going to call meeting someone in the street you never met before, and you're talking with them. It's a negotiation. It's not like, it's a conversation, but it's also a negotiation. It's almost like trying to work out, am I okay to be here? Are you okay to be here? And you both say, see you later afterwards, and everything's okay. But when you're having that conversation, you establish each other's wit, and I'm going to call it wit, because wit gets you out of trouble. It also gets you into trouble. So you see what I'm saying? It's like when you have the conversation, the other person recognizes either you need some help, and maybe they can't help, but they pass you to someone that can help you. But if you're just asking for directions, that's easy enough. They tell you sensibly as they can which way to go in the direction you need to find where you're looking for. But when you kind of when you're in a mood, excuse me, some people do have bad moods, and when you're in a bad mood, if you say you're in a bad mood and you meet someone, then you need, I try, let me say this is how I deal with that. I try and calm myself to the point where the mood is suppressed. I might still have a bad mood after I speak with the person. I might not. If they make you laugh, then your mood might shift. But that's one way of approaching people, is to, now actually, good. I'm glad I said that, because that reminds me, I have this concept of respect first. When you approach someone, you do so respectfully always. Yeah. You don't know who they are. If you don't know who they are, you approach them, whatever they look like, you approach them respectfully, and you kind of almost acknowledge that they have a right. Well, you do acknowledge they have a right to be where they are. You have a right to be where you are, and they might ask you a couple of questions like, "Hello, are you looking for somewhere?" or something like that, and you tell them where you're looking for. Oh, that's okay. That's a shop. You're going to do some shopping. That's great. We want people to come and do shopping in this place, and you see that's how come you're there. Is you need to go to a shop. So you have an invitation.
Hold on to that thought, David, because I want to bring my lived experience into that bit. Hold on to that thought, and we'll come back to that. And I've took you mentioned two other things that I want to bring my lived experience in on, but we're going to come into that a little bit later. But my question to you is, what does mental health, or what does mental ill health mean to you?
Yeah, I've got a head start on that question because I've heard you ask that question before. So now you see the thing is that okay, I'm going to say it like this because I've learned something since then. I've learned something. I went to a neurodiversity talk in Norwich, and neurodiversity talk is about people that think differently. And I established something there in my mind about, and I said this like this. I said it like this. Let me just think of the phrase that I used. Right. Mental ill health is it an evolutionary accident or an evolutionary solution? So what I'm saying there is, if you look at it as an evolutionary accident and a problem, then it will always be that. If you look at it as an actual solution to the world's problems, then it might actually be the solution to the world's problems, which we have not discovered why yet.
Yeah, I can take that.
I mean, we do have this concept that people with mental ill health suffer, but it's like saying you don't really cast that one. What you do is you ask the person, do you suffer from mental ill health? Or you don't say you suffer from mental ill health. You ask them, and then they'll say, well, it's not as bad as all that, actually. You know, I'm here talking with you for starters.
Well, that's another question, because when we did the training, when we did the program that you attended in Bungay, I've done 2 more since then, and I've got my head a bit frazzled. The myths and misconceptions of mental health and mental ill health, and the biggest one for me is, when was the last time you saw a positive thing in the news, newspaper, article, whatever, any news about someone with schizophrenia?
Okay, good question. That is a really good question. Well, you know, it's like the accreditation of the film A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah, I'm 33 years old, 34 this year, and I don't think I've ever seen anything positive about someone with schizophrenia. And when I was in 2006, I think I was around 16, maybe younger or a little bit older. I was diagnosed with borderline schizophrenia.
Right.
And that totally went out. My mind just blew because I'd not seen any positive from it.
Yeah. I thought that was the end. You thought that was the end.
Yeah. I thought I was going to be. I just lived my life, and I become a bit unruly, to be fair.
Okay.
And I didn't care. But in 2017 and 18, when I had my psychotic break, I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Well, then I went back and saw a psychiatrist again, and he told me I've got unstable personality disorder, which it's technically called emotional unstable personality disorder, but I've got psychotic episodes and compulsive components. So if you want to send me your bank card and let me spend for you, I'd be quite happy to, because I'm very good at spending money. But for months after that, I learned how to deal with living with a mental illness, but not living as my mental illness. I learned to live with it, and you can't see my head. I'll bend down a little bit, but it's above here. It's a label. Some people say labels aren't good, and some people do. I think the labels helped me because it's helped me grow. I wouldn't be here now doing this with you if I hadn't grown within the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So what do you think about labels when it comes to mental health? Do you think they're good, or do you think they can be dangerous at the same time?
Okay, that's a good question again. I mean, they're important for the clinical staff, but they're not so important for the public. If you keep the words and the labels inside their offices and inside their labs, then they can talk that language as much as they want. As soon as you introduce it to the locality that you live, people will be talking behind your back. He's schizophrenic, he's bipolar, he's something else. They don't know what it means. They don't know what it means. And the thing is that the person that wears the label, they know what it means because they've been called it, and they know that that's on their files somewhere. But the reason that clinical staff use labels is so they can quickly determine a person's categorization or spectrum, where they fit on the spectrum. Now, I mean, I'm talking in their defense a little bit, because if they did not have that, then they'd spend half an hour every time they talk about someone just saying this person is this, instead of just saying they're this, you see? And they haven't got that much time. There's a lot less of them than there are people that need the help. Now, I'm going to say it like that, but I need to say one more thing, and that is 500 years ago, there was a happy person, a sad person, an angry person, and someone that didn't behave very properly. And now we've got labels for those people. Now, we've still got angry people, sad people, according to little tiny people that don't know any different, that children as such. They look at people, now that man's sad, that man's happy, that man's angry. And you see, their labels might be more appropriate for the general consumption of people around you, not the clinical staff, you see. So if we can separate like clinical descriptions of people from the public and keep it in the clinical side of things for the doctors to discuss you about, then and then within general populace, you have people, oh, he's a bit sad today, he seems a bit depressed. Even you can use that word, he seems a bit depressed, although it is a clinical term again. Now, the one of the most dangerous things for anybody in public to do is to go around defining people as a clinical diagnosis. For instance, you can only be clinically diagnosed by a doctor. Yes, exactly. That's quite important, because some people go around saying he's a bit bipolar, or he's a bit OCD, or he's a bit something else. And that's another, using labels that are very clearly defined to protect the person. And this is something that I want to try and establish, is these labels are there for your protection of a fashion. We don't feel like that as the people that wear the label, but they are there to protect us after a certain amount of fashion and such.
Yeah, I hold my hand up there, because there was some stuff done on Twitter about people saying about, oh, they're like a little bit like OCD and stuff like that. And then a couple of OCD people come in and they got involved, and it wasn't a naughty conversation where they were beating each other up about it. They were all explaining what they were saying, and I was just reading up on it, and I hold my hand up. Yeah, I used to say about people being like OCD, so I can get. I now won't say that, because I think it's wrong to say that. But I hold my hand up. I've done that in the past. Oh, it's a bit OCD of me, or a bit OCD of them, and I hold my hand up. I was in the wrong for doing that.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we're judging anybody here, obviously, but you know, it's like you take responsibility for that, don't you? So you know, I'm going to say that I don't use the word crazy very much. I mean, there's occasionally, maybe once every month, I might say something about something a bit sin, a bit crazy. But you see, even that can be used as a sort of a degradation of someone's status.
Yeah, that's like between me and my partner. My partner will call me nuts.
Right.
But for her and me, that's our way of coping with my mental illness. And she's the only really one that I will let her call me like nuts.
Right.
Because we laugh about it, and that's one way I've found of getting through my mental illness. And she doesn't call me at like 24/7, but that just makes us giggle and makes us laugh, and we're not. She doesn't mean nothing bad by it. But I'm gonna
If-
bring you on. I'm gonna
Thank you.
bring you on to. You said you live in a village.
Hmm.
Well, I've been in this. I think I've been in this property now 2 years, and we used to live 5 miles out from Beccles,
Hmm.
and I don't drive.
Yeah.
And I started going in that downward spiral of self-isolation.
Yeah.
My mental health took a big dip. I got knocked out of one service because I couldn't get the transport into Lowestoft every week to do the event. So they told me that I was fine and well enough to carry on just under one service. So that made me feel like, oh, I'm not a part of that community anymore, which you
Right.
touched on earlier. And it was where I used to live. Some of the people looked down at you, but I had a news reporter from BBC Look East come round one day with his camera just to do a little clip about something that was happening.
Hmm.
And they couldn't stop talking to me. And it was like, you don't, we sort of say hello to each other in the street and stuff. But if that community had been a little bit, there was one that was brilliant. There were two of them that were brilliant, and they were older ladies. And they knew I struggled, and they always kept an eye on me. If they knew Debbie, my partner Debbie, had gone out, they'd always like check in on me and just check that I was all right and stuff like that. And that really meant a lot. That brought back a little bit of a community. But while I was living out in the sticks, I got involved with projects at Borough Castle. And Borough Castle gave me my connection back to nature, to people. And then finally we got to move back to Lowestoft. And I started getting involved in more projects. Now, to me, I like to be that shy one and not be out there, and people might think that's strange, you're doing podcasts and putting them onto YouTube. But like my message is, I don't want the fame. I just want to, if someone can take something from this or any other episode I do or anything I do or blog or say at a talk and can take something from that, it's been a success.
Okay.
So for me, being a part of that Borough Castle give me that community back.
Right.
Where I didn't feel it when I was in Brampton, apart from two people that always checked in on me and had a laugh. Yeah, go on, David.
Could I ask you then, what does the word reintegration mean? Reintegration mean to you?
Well, that's, to me, when I lived in the village just outside of Beccles, I wasn't integrated in anything. But then I started this project, and I wasn't going to go back after the first session because there was loads of people there. Well, not loads, but there was a big group of numbers there. It was well turned out, really well done. And I just didn't think it was for me. But me and my partner talked, and I went back, and I've reintegrated. I can't even say the word, David. I've reintegrated myself into doing talks from this project. That's where I was Saturday at the UEA. It was an archaeology conference, and we were talking about how our project, although we weren't really archaeologically based, one of our members would dig around in a couple of molehills, and he found a Roman coin. So that then got me back into feeling like I can do this. It got me into wanting to blog more. It got me wanting to do podcasts even more and make them better. And that's got me to grow. If you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do see what you mean. Now growing is an interesting concept because you've got that you eat a lot of the food and you grow from a child up to a tall person, and then then you've got another type of growth, and that is, now I'm going to say it like this. It sounds a bit odd, but mental stimulation. It's almost like your mind is expanding.
Yeah.
And now the tricky bit with expanding your mind, right, is you can kind of shrink as well. So it pulsates, possibly is one of the words, but ultimately we're trying to grow it so that your mind gets big enough to handle the concepts which are going to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's almost like territory. It's almost like gaining territory, but you don't move your body to gain the territory. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like if I'm doing a talk and I don't get a good feeling from the room or a vibe from the room, I feel that the crowd, it doesn't need to know, they wouldn't handle if I went into my dark days of my mental health. I won't go into that. I will talk about other bits of my story.
Yeah.
So I won't go into that. But I'm going to ask you to read one of your poems now, David.
Thank you. Yes. I'm going to read the first one it's the top one. And this one is called Frozen Lie. So we all know what a lie is, and this one is frozen. So here we go. Ice enveloped my heart, knowing it was a lie. The liar smiled, knowing the lie to be sown. The new wearer of the lie froze like their heart. How long this frozen moment would last? Truth, though, the frozen recipient of the lie, they knew truth. What better an instrument to smash the ice, leaving the lie exposed? And so to the liar, in a metaphorical stock for all to see, the recipient of the lie was now free, and the liar caught in their own trap. A bit of an own goal, these lies. Tusk, tusk.
I like that. I really do like that. Where do you get because when we were a part of the Bungie Heart and Minds project, you've done a poem when you were like the peer delivering the second training. Where do these poems come from? And do they make you feel good when you write them?
Yeah, I'm so pleased you asked me that, because there's a lot of poetry in the world, and previously I almost write poem in retaliation for what I call stigma that is produced and generated from the community. I don't think stigma comes from nowhere. I think it is generated. So if I feel it, I see something, or it's directed at me, then what I do is I write a poem in retaliation. And now what I'm saying with that is, now I really believe that let me just show you this a second. Here we go. The pen is mightier than the sword. And when someone, this is so funny, when someone throws stigma at me, it takes energy to throw stigma, right? It takes energy, right? And that it's wasted. It's wasted. You could turn that stigma generation energy into creation. You could build a house with it. You could you could dredge a river, make it more safe for tourists. You could do so many things with what they use stigma generation for. Now, okay, I'm gonna throw this one in, because this actually explains a little bit about where poetry comes from. Right, I'm gonna step into the limelight. Suggs, Madness lead singer. His brother is schizophrenic. You may not know that.
Yes, I didn't till up to about 3 or 4 months ago, when I sat in a cafe and this bloke saw my parka, and it's a mod's parka.
Ah.
And I'm a big mod, and he was reeling off loads of madness facts to me that I didn't even know about. And he told me that, and I never knew that.
Okay, I'm pleased that someone's related that to you, because what if, right, the whole concept of one step beyond, right? What does that mean anyway? I mean, does it mean that we are in the future telling everybody about what's going to happen? Does it mean that? Yeah. Does it mean that we're positioned in the future? We're just telling people how it's going to happen. And this is why we
thought of that.
Well, this is just the thing. The thing is, right, that we might be the natural chess players of the world, which we don't play actual chess, although I do. But we're several moves ahead, thinking about what's going to happen. Yeah. We see things and predict things in a different way to other people. We connect things differently, but who's to say differently isn't right?
Yeah. Do you know what? That brings me on to, before we get you to read your second poem, me and we had I used to work with an Australian guy. He used to be a maintenance in a care home man, but sometimes he would come and do shifts with us because he really enjoyed working with people with learning this. And we went out and watched one of the plays they did and they were involved with. And one of the ladies with learning this turned around and said, she's not normal. And I don't mean this nastily, she wasn't very competent with other bits and bobs. So I'm not normal, my family don't like me. And my colleague turned around and went, you are normal and your family is at the home where you live. And that put the biggest smile on her face. And we had a talk about it in our staff meeting the next month. And we said, what is to say that the people with learning this are the people that are living their life and people that are doing the support work, that is our role. Yeah. You see what I mean?
What if this adding to that, what if the bedrock of any community is the person that is shunned? The bedrock. What if the bedrock is that person?
Yeah, and, that's a valid point. I totally agree with you. I'm going to ask you to read your second poem.
Okay. Right. Okay. Good. Here we go. This one is the second poem, and it's called A Piece of Cake. Right. Reality is easy. It is a piece of cake. Comparing it to the imagined, are people as easy as reality, as a piece of cake? Of course not. They are very hard to draw. A piece of cake is easy to draw, but they are both real. How is one not so easy to draw? Because one is autonomous and the other is not, but both are made. One is not made with butter, but both can be soft. How is one a piece of cake and the other not? Because one is a piece of cake and the other is a people. Oh, how come there are only crumbs left on the plate? People smiles.
Do you know what? I'm on a diet at the minute and I've just lost over just over 2 stone. You don't know how much I'd love a piece of cake. And exactly. I'm not a big cake eater at all, David, but okay. I wouldn't lie. A piece of Victoria sponge would go down a treat.
Yes. There's a good few places that sell that sort of thing, which is the danger of it all.
Yes, I'm well aware when I'm walking around the shop doing our healthy shopping, and we're struggling. That's going to bring us to an end, David. But before we go, I just want to get 2 bits of advice for you. So, the advice is for someone that wants to get into your career line of work you do.
Okay.
And the second bit, what bit of advice if someone was struggling with just low mood or anxiety or a bit of depression or a mental health condition, what would you suggest they do? And I personally don't think there's a right or wrong answer here.
Right, thank you. Well, the first piece of advice I'd get to say, getting into coding. Now, I'll just have to say that coding and programming has helped me with my, I'm going to throw this phrase in, psychosis issues. I'm using that word. It's quite a strong word to use, but it's not a dangerous thing. It's not a danger. It's very naturally occurring in psychosis, and you know, if it's naturally occurring, what can we do about it?
Yeah.
So so what I do about it is I code, and I write programs, which is a creative form of suppressing my active imagination, but then using that to develop programs. So my advice, right, to get into that sort of thing, if you feel that you need something to occupy yourself or do anything, is if you have a computer, it almost does need to be a relatively good one, but you can still get away with certain computers that are maybe a few years old still. But all the tools that you need, right, to start programming are on the internet for you to download and start coding with them. You now, if you do want to come to me, I can supply a list of the tools that you would need to install, and possibly a couple of books that might help you into that area. Online books or online material might also be beneficial. So that's some piece of advice if you'd like to get into the programming arena as such. It's the very first program, just to give you an idea, the very first program that you write when you tend to write is called Hello World. Now, why do they do that? It's like you start coding, where do all the borders go? You're coding. It's like you're writing software that the whole world is going to be able to use. Now, maybe that's the reason. Anyway, we'll move into the next area. The next question that John asked, which was advice to sort of stay on the straight and narrow as such. Let's see. Okay, so I've got a phrase which might help. I wrote this little phrase. It goes like this: in the round trip of life, knowledge and honesty gets you complete. So be as true to yourself as you can. Now, if you can possibly recognize who you are, and then start from that point, moving through your life. And if you can remember that healing is something that anybody can do with a polite and concerned sometimes, but also polite and kind conversation. A small bit of healing each day is a kindness that you can offer someone else. So treat other people with as much kindness as you can, even if you're in a bad mood, like sometimes you can be in. Try and suppress the bad mood long enough where you have the conversation, then move to the next conversation, so that you don't necessarily spread your bad mood, but you possibly alleviate your bad mood and heal yourself by having kindness within you. So there, I think that's probably some advice that I would give.
That's brilliant. So people, this has been David Robertson from Jader Jader, and I'm John from Living with Mental Health. I just want to say thank you for David, obviously, for sponsoring my equipment, and we will see you in the next one. I'm going to try and do these weekly. I just need to learn how to get it all edited properly and then go from there. But we should be back. I will see you all later. Thank you ever so much for watching and listening.